Hey y'all, welcome back to Colored Couch Conversations, a podcast where I have intimate conversations with women of color on my couch. Today, my guest and I will discuss friendship and failure, and then some. And then some is such a Black statement, I think. I'm your host, Jasmine W., and my guest today is a certified friendship coach, PR agency owner, and author. Please welcome Danielle Bayard Jackson by following her on Instagram at Danielle Bayard Jackson, and check out her website, www.daniellebayardjackson.com. You know, it's a shame if I'm saying your name wrong. Am I saying your name right, Danielle?
No, that works. Danielle Bayard Jackson.
Bayard. Okay. Danielle Bayard. And I always say this, people probably listening like, girl, why don't you learn how to say her name right before the podcast? Just let her correct me on the air. It's not that big of a deal. So Danielle Bayard Jackson. So good to have you.
It's good to be here. I'm excited to be on the couch with you today.
Our virtual couch. Now, Danielle, you are stunning. Do you know that, girl? You are beautiful.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep that and put it in my pocket for my low days. I'll pull that out. Thank you. That's very nice.
You are. I'm so glad to have you on to talk about friendships. Now, we always start the podcast off with a quote of the day, and you know this quote because you chose it. And it's, "The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story," by Chimamanda Adichie. What does this quote mean to you? Why did you choose it?
So I do my homework, and I know other ladies on the show, they've always got like this really motivational Michelle Obama, Beyonce quote. And I'm like, let's talk about the pain of stereotypes. But I think I like that quote so much because it lends itself to virtually every space right now and sheds light on how dangerous that can be. So like, we're talking about friendship right now. Like, you have a lot of women who hold stereotypes against other women, and that's why they don't want to have female friendships, or stereotypes of certain racial groups. But it's like, I understand where that stereotype's coming from, but like seeing that danger play out, especially right now, like in this political climate, like the danger of making these decisions and making full narratives based on this sliver of a stereotype that you believe about this thing, and it just has such like huge ripple effects. So that quote always sticks with me because it sheds light on something that a lot of us do every day, and it's just really dangerous. So I just thought, I don't know, it really resonates. But next time I'll have like a really motivational Michelle Obama quote.
You know what? I love that quote because it's come up in my life a couple of times recently, actually. It's funny that you start off bring up the conversation around women having female stereotypes, because last night I actually saw a TikTok where a young Black woman said, this is what she said: if you have this combo, long nails,
oh God, okay,
long thick lashes, a wig with extreme baby hair, that you are ghetto and you are the type of girl who would fight somebody. Like, she named 3 things and she made assumptions about women, and then she brought up Cardi B as an example. And I was like, girl, what is wrong with you? Why are you lumping, especially as a Black woman, the things that we go through?
Mm-hmm. My prayer is that, my hope is that it was something just for views, like a really cheap way of getting views. I'm going to hope that was the goal. But, I know she's not the only one. And even though that's like so extreme, I know a lot of us are doing our version of like, if a girl has this, we can't be friends. We're like, oh, I already know about her. Like, she just walked in the room at the party. Ugh, I already know about her. And it's like, we haven't even had a conversation. So that's sad, especially coming from one of our own. Yes, yeah. Sadder.
Whew. Okay, well, you are a friendship coach. What does that mean?
Okay, so essentially these days, it's 2020. So at this point, you can get a coach for anything. Mm-hmm. For anything, you can get a coach. And are you like in LA?
Yeah.
I feel like, I've been in LA once. I'm not cool enough to live there, but I feel like everybody's like a coach, success coach, life coach, wellness coach. So there's really a coach for anything. But the reason I fall into it, I always made the joke about, when you were in high school, you took like that skills-based test that was like, tell us your interests, your skills, and then we're going to tell you like what you should be. So like friendship coach was definitely like not on that list, but I was actually a high school English teacher for 6 years. And so, I'm working with 17, 18-year-olds. So I heard a lot of the girls, their chatter between classes in the hallway, or they'd want to pull me aside after class and be like, she's just so da 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 da. So I made the mistake of dismissing it as, they're teenagers, like they're ridiculous. That's what they do. But when I got into public relations, and I'm now having conversations with women who like own these big companies and the C-suite and all that, then I hear a conversation about friendship come from them. But at that point, their issue is not having any friends because they're so ambitious or career driven. And so that's when I was like, oh, this is like a thing, like whatever season of life, trying to figure out how to relate to other women is a thing. And so I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of like doing the research and reading books on it and all these things. And that's kind of where it started. And so, I got certified to coach. So that's when I was like, oh, this is a thing. This is a space that doesn't have a lot of resources. And whenever I would talk to people about it, it's always funny because if I mention it to someone, I'm like, yeah, in a friendship coach, they're always like, that's cute, and then when I'm like, yeah, so, I could help talk you through this and this and this. It's like, oh my God, let me tell you about this thing that happened to me, so it's cool to be in a space where so many women are trusting me with very intimate thoughts and feelings and experiences,
Yeah. And you said you have an app that's about to launch soon. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the friendship business is called Friend Forward, like moving forward and up with your friendships. And so the membership is called Friend Forward, and we have an app coming out soon. Maybe at the time of the show it'll be out, but it's unlike other apps because like there are apps where you like swipe and meet other women. Like that's like a thing, like Bumble BFF, it's a thing. But in my opinion, where they fall short is that there's no shortage of meeting people. Like you could swipe all day long to meet other people. But if you haven't if you don't know how to talk to them once you get there, or you have certain hangups, or you have certain negative behaviors that keep getting in the way of you like having new friendships, then it doesn't matter if you keep swiping. So this will be like the first app where we're teaching you about, how to make friends if you're really, really busy, how to know if a friendship is just difficult or if it's toxic, because we use those words synonymously. They're not the same thing. A lot of us are ending friendships prematurely, and there's resources for moms and entrepreneurs. So it'll be like the first app of its kind to like teach you, like there are many lessons, and then we'll host virtual events as well to kind of serve as like the practice field for what you learned. So if we just did a lesson yesterday, then in 2 days we probably have like a virtual trap yoga session or a virtual origami session, mixology lessons, but it's really like the backdrop upon which to apply what you just learned.
I love that. I've been on a friendship app before.
And what was your experience?
So, okay, I lived in San Francisco for 5 years. I tell people I didn't have a lot of Black female friends while I was there. I didn't have a lot of friends. I just had a few really good friends that I made. So I've never been on a dating app because me and my husband have been together so long. Thank God. Oh my God. But it's similar to what I hear my friends say about the dating app. So the conversations got started, but they never went anywhere. I never hung out with any of the girls from the app. One of us would start the conversation, and then, I remember on a couple of instances it went on for a little bit too long to where I was like, girl, okay, I don't even want to talk to you no more, girl. If we can't meet up and have coffee, why are we still talking? It wasn't that great, neither one of us ever made a move, asked each other out.
Yeah. And you know what? And a lot of that, like it's mirrored by what we experience in real life, even though it's in the digital sphere, but like putting yourself out there either way. So if you really like her and you think to yourself like, man, she's cool, but there's like that whole, like, what if I say something and she rejects it? Like, that's just central to, human beings in general. We're resistant to that kind of like pain and vulnerability and exposure. And then there's the whole, like, what if she doesn't think I'm cool the way I think she's cool? And just that whole thing. Or some people, I'm learning that there's a lot more people who are claiming to have, social anxiety and they want to, but they're so almost immobilized by their fear of going out, having the conversation, awkward moments, freak them out, so I think there's just like a lot at play. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that that was like a thing.
Yeah. Wow, this is so fascinating. Okay, y'all. Okay, y'all know if you listened to the podcast before, and hopefully you have, welcome if you haven't, but we always start with some random questions. This helps me get to know my guests. This will help us get to know Danielle a little bit more. So my first question for you, Danielle, is do you believe in best friends, BFFs? Because I saw someone online say that they didn't believe in that because it puts too much pressure and too many expectations on a relationship. That was their point of view. What's yours?
Okay, I have a very unpopular opinion because I also think, I'll just say I think we should be careful about saying it. I've said it, but I think with the pressure thing, okay, it does put a certain expectation on this person. So if you're my best friend, it's like, what does that mean? Because we don't ever talk about it. It's not like we're like, okay, so here you go, contractually, here's, what I expect of you. We never do that. But there are a set of expectations surrounding, like, if you're my best friend, that means what? Probably images of, I can call you at any time and you are ready to like emotionally support me. And I don't have to explain, like, if I'm like, we're going to go fight this girl, we're going to go fight this girl. Like, I shouldn't have to explain to you. Like, there's just so many, there's the expectation that you won't really hang out and get close with other friends. Like if we're admitting it because like we're best friends. So now suddenly you start spending a lot of time with another friend, am I going to interpret that as some form of disloyalty or betrayal, even though really you have every right to go and explore new friendships. So sometimes it just, or, on the other end, sometimes when the relationships phase out, then we don't know what to do because we're like, but you're my best friend. Like you were in my wedding. So I don't even know how to process us not being as close anymore. So there's just some stuff that can come with that. But, I can see it also being like a harmless thing that two women say, to each other. I've seen, like, personally, I have a very close friend who always says, I'm one of her best friends. She always says, I have three best friends, my high school best friend, my college best friend. And that's just what she says. And I've never felt like, oh, well, I want it to be like your only, so, I guess like the way you use it and the women you use it with, as long as everybody understands there's a flow and it's okay if the dynamic changes over time and when one gets married and, that whole thing. So I see how it could be totally harmless, but I do see how sometimes those expectations can kind of set us up for some like conflict and disappointment.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned there are no set in stone rules about being a best friend. I don't know if you ever watched The Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Do you remember Cynthia's friend contract with Nene?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Have you ever seen one of those or heard about one of those in your coaching?
No, not in real life. Oh my gosh. I did like a funny video. Well, okay. It was funny to me on my Instagram about like, how we're like, have this list of like, I want this and I want to be able to call her and she's funny. She supports me, blah, blah, blah. And like, you give her the contract and you're like, all right, here's your contract. And then the other girl's saying like, oh my God, I have like the exact same contract for you. And it being like, yeah, no, I can't commit to all of that. So a lot of times we expect all these things of our friends, but it's like, if you had to have like a real conversation with yourself, are you okay with that? Are you okay with being called in the middle of the night, ride or die, no matter what, always showing up for her? Like, can you do all the same things? Oh, you always want her to text you right back. Okay. Are you going to text right back? So it's just like, what are the expectations? It's so funny you mentioned Housewives because the other day I was like, oh my God, I need to do videos or something on just like, watching Housewives just in general, like the dynamic of women and then being like, oh, we're not cool anymore. Okay. We are cool. And then other girls instigating. I'm like, there is just like so much content here. It's not even funny. But yeah, the contract thing, I jokingly, I wish it was a thing because it's like we could be on the same page, like, okay, these are the things I need, so it's funny, but to some extent I get it because I always like to put things like in a romantic context. Like if we're dating, your friend goes on a date, you would encourage her like, girl, make sure you're clear about like what you want, like let him know what you want, what you're looking for. Like that makes sense to us, so nobody's guessing. But then like in the friend world, we have this expectation that there should be chemistry and I shouldn't ever have to say what I need. Like we're friends. I should never have to be like, hey, listen, I kind of need you to da-da-da. This is what I like. Because it's like it kills the romanticism of like just it being easy, like natural. But, one downside of not doing that is then when you do get slighted or a boundary is crossed or whatever, then you're huffing and puffing or you want to cut the friendship off, but you never even told her like, hey, that's kind of like my threshold, or like, hey, I'm not cool with that. But you never told her because she's just supposed to know,
Yeah.
so we've got to figure out, how to have expectations of our friends and talk it out and all that good stuff. I think it'll save us a lot of confusion and disappointment.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of friends?
I think it depends on how people use friends. I would say no. Like that I have like my close, like 3 girls that I can call and be like, oh my God, like help me out with this, or here's what I'm going through. But I could see how maybe on the outside somebody looking in would be like, oh, you probably do, because I'm very social and I'm very like, hey girl, hey. And sometimes like even on Instagram I'm like, hey friend, and it's like, should you call everybody your friend? So people use that word very loosely. Extroverts tend to claim to have a lot of friends because they mistake their connections and associations as friendships. But there's this research that says that we only have the mental capacity to be super close with 5 people. Like
Yeah.
your brain can't even handle pouring into more than 5 people. And then get this, it tells us that if you have a romantic partner in your life, that person takes up 2 of those 5 spots
Yeah.
because of like how much you have to pour into them. So really like 3 is like normal to have 3 people you're close with. So a lot of times when people are like, oh, I'm a bad friend, or I need more friends, or I want, it's like, well, are you trying to maintain friendships with like 10 women? Like it's not even possible. So I
Yeah.
like sharing that because I think it gives some of us like a sigh of relief of like, oh, okay, I don't have to keep up with all. No, you don't. It's not even possible. So I feel blessed to have 3 close women who I can call. But for the woman who's like, oh, I don't have my squad, it's like, it's okay. Take a breath, relax. Like.
You know what? That's such good info. I'm married, right? I don't have a ton of close friends. In fact, some of my best friends, I have like two or three best friends. One of them may not even know she's my best friend because I don't just throw the word around. And they're in different cities, LA, San Francisco, Dallas, right? But the ones none of them, actually, I don't talk to any of them either every day. I talk to my mom every day. I talk to my dad every other day. I do not have the capacity to call you at the end of the week to tell you the rundown on my week. If you need me, call me. If I need you, I will call you. We DM on Instagram all the time. If I feel like I'm a bad friend because I do not have the capacity to call you every other day, girl or boy. One of my best friends is a guy. It's like, I don't have the time, and they understand it. They get me. And that's why they're my friend. But I could not imagine sitting down with another human being and them telling me what they need. I'd be like, baby, we are not married.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me. And I think a key is what you said about, and they get me. Like we
Yeah.
have an understanding. We're cool. Like we don't have to talk every day. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I think that's what everybody's looking for, like that ease, and I can just call you whenever and you're not going to be upset that we haven't. So I think everybody's looking for that sense of understanding. I would wonder though, would you say that it was always like that, like from the beginning, or it's something that you guys have eased into now that you don't necessarily have to do that? But what was the frequency of interaction looking like at the beginning?
Yeah, I would say, with I used to live in Dallas. I'm from Dallas. So, and we used to work together and we used to hang out a lot, and we were at a different point in our lives. We were 21, 22. We used to party all the time. And then I moved to San Francisco, and then that distance, she was always in a relationship, and then I got into a relationship. So there was that natural space that was created in the physical space. Then I became with my best friend Travis, who lived in San Francisco. Like, we didn't really call each other ever, when we don't, but we hung out a lot because we lived in the same city. And then I moved to LA, and then that separation, you know what I mean? So it's the moves kind of did that. We're still friends and we're great friends. And when we see each other, I just drove an hour. One of my friend Travis was visiting SoCal, and he was like, I'm going to be like an hour away from you. I dropped everything. I cleared out my whole weekend. Say, whenever you're ready, I'll drive down, and we had dinner. You know what I mean? So I don't have to, like, it's the space, but that space also ruined some friendships for me. Like, oh, we never talk, we don't call. And I'm like, I live in a completely different city, 2,000 miles away. I'm working on all the things I'm working on. I just can't call you every day or every week. I'm sorry. We can text. I don't even like talking on the phone.
Yeah, no, I get that. And you know what, you're highlighting like a lot of, key elements and things that I see. And, because one of the fundamental ingredients of building a friendship is repeated exposure. So that's why you see like coworkers become friends, neighbors become friends, because I see your face every day. So just by, proximity, we're going to like build, we're going to be talking. So it makes sense that, having that at the beginning, especially when we're younger, you're in school, would bring us together really quickly. Another thing that brings us together is, self-disclosure. So we say vulnerability, but like sharing about ourselves. And that tends to happen like when we're together, but that's something that kind of like expedites the process too. Like your willingness to share brings you together. So when you have that a lot, I see you every day. And so now we're feeling comfortable. So now I'm sharing, it brings me together. So, essentially when you do start to drift, maybe like physically or whatever, well, we already kind of like glued ourselves. Like we already went through the process to kind of fasten ourselves to each other. So it makes sense that we'd still be, still be close. But for some, it's like you have a lot of people who they work together and they move jobs and then they're like not friends anymore. And you have one who's like, well, what happened? And it's like, well, you guys never had practice being friends outside of working, or working was the thing that brought you together, but all the other elements aren't really strong. So maybe it doesn't have the same elasticity to like, last. So yeah, it's tricky. And then also, I would think like to your friends, you moved and they're like, oh my God, where'd you go? One thing I like to drop too, but it's kind of like a tough love thing, is there's the study that found only half of our friendships are reciprocal. And sometimes even to hear that is like, wait, what? So I'm like, I don't ever say that to be like, to incite like paranoia, like, well, time out, because I have 10 friends, but maybe only 5 of them like see me. But it's the truth. So like if you have this friendship and you're like, oh yeah, she's cool, but she's thinking like, oh my God, yeah, Jasmine's like one of my best friends. There's nothing you can do about that, but that is just a reality. So that, of course, there's friction that emerges from that, because it's like the expectations that you would call, because she prioritizes the friendship more than you do. And that's okay. But you being like, I can't maintain this in the same level is just like totally natural. So I know that can, that's a truth that might make some of us like, oh God, but I feel like there can be freedom in that. Like, oh, only half of you like me back. Okay. Like it just is what it is.
Wow. Okay, y'all. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about success and failure and being an entrepreneur. Welcome back to Colored Couch Conversations. Of course, I'm your host, Jasmine W., but my wonderful guest, Danielle Bayard Jackson. Make sure you follow her on Instagram at Danielle Bayard Jackson. That's DanielleBayard Jackson. If you can't spell Jackson, honey, I don't know what to tell you. You can also go to her website, DanielleBayardJackson.com. Now, okay, we're still on random questions. I guess I really wanted to know from you because whenever I checked you out on Instagram and your website, I was like, wow, you're so smart and professional. And I consider myself a new entrepreneur, being like a year into running my own business, which is just like myself. So I'd love to know, what advice do you have for me and for anyone else who might be starting their own business but might be new at it? And it could be anything.
Oh my gosh. Advice for new business owners. One thing I would say is to get really clear on what you do and to be unafraid to be laser focused on that thing for a while until you, and not to say you're not already good at it because you're in the business, so you're probably good at what it is you do, but until people start to know you for the thing you do and it's really natural before you start to kind of like diversify your services and things like that. So one thing I see is, getting into business, we want to do all the things and we're like, oh, I can offer that. I can offer. And it makes it hard for people to know how to use you. So that's one thing I would say is to kind of really get granular and like, okay, who specifically do I serve? What's my thing? What do I do? And, kind of find freedom in the fact that you don't have to do it all right now. Maybe in 6 months, you add the next thing and the next thing. So that would be kind of like one piece of advice. And then the other is to just kind of like have boundaries. I know sometimes we can like grind all day and we're excited, but like making sure you take time away because that's what keeps you creative, honestly, and keeps you having that balance. So those would be two pieces of advice I think would be important for somebody starting out.
Yeah. How do you run a business? And it sounds, you run more than one business. How do you run a business, be married, and also have children?
I cry in my car on lunch break. Oh my God. It is a lot. And to be totally transparent, recently I've been thinking like, am I doing too much? But I'm very like, let's just do it now. Like I have an idea. Oh my God, like let's do it now. Pretty much against the advice I just gave about 40 seconds ago. But I get excited and you want to do all the things. But it's hard sometimes because especially when I love the friendship space. I love the research. I love all that. I love PR. I love helping, women of color, like get more attention for what they're doing. And so it's hard to turn off. I, love being a mom. And so it's just all the things. I think one thing that's really freed me from feeling guilty and busy and overwhelmed is just that in terms of balance, it's okay to not be able to do all the things every day and maybe like taking more of an aerial view and zooming out and saying like, as long as I touched all the things this week, this month. So maybe today I feel like a bad mom because I'm like, God, I didn't drop him off. My husband did because I had this meeting and God, I'm not even going to see him till late. So I could get caught up in like, oh, I'm not a good mom. I didn't have, but it's like, what, today I had on, publicist cap. And that was the bucket I had to pour into today. But tomorrow, he and I can go to the park. We can have a little time. I'll turn off my email. And so as long as I touched on all the things this week, I did a good job. And so I'm having to kind of redefine what it means to be quote unquote balanced. It doesn't have to be daily. Sometimes it can be weekly and monthly touches to make sure, everything's moving well and you touched, everything and everybody. So that's kind of what I'm working on now.
I love that. That is such good advice because it actually makes me think about my time working in HR, and we would call it high touch service, where you feel connected, you're high touch, you talk to me when you need me, I'm available, but I don't necessarily talk to you every day. And that's how you have to treat your business and your life. Girl, you taught me something today because that makes me feel so much better because I am a do all of the things type person, but I'm also lazy. So just make sure that you touch it on these things every week is just such a sigh of relief for me.
Yeah. I think that's how we get it done. It's just like, I can't do it all today. And that's okay. And not, I can't do it all today, but like, okay, maybe if I multitask, like listen to the podcast while I do this thing and then like vacuum the house and send out those emails. And it's just like, and honestly too, I wish I remembered the name of the book, but it was saying something about how like multitasking is actually like this, it's like a paradox because you actually get less done. Like you get less done. So that kind of is freeing too. Like, okay, well, if I try to do the 3 things, I'm going to do them all poorly. I'm not going to finish any of them as opposed to this is the one thing I'm doing today. And I'm going to just like knock it out of the park and I'll do the next thing tomorrow. So it's just a new way to think about things. But yeah, that's a game changer. That's a game changer.
Okay, so my last random question is, are you successful? It's kind of a 2-part question. I feel bad, but are you successful and, what's the last thing that you failed at?
Oh, well, one of my, clients at the PR agency is a success coach, and she helps people redefine success. And it's really been helping me just to be working with her because she's talking about like, especially during the pandemic, we're at home, we're not out and about, all these things. And a lot of people are stressing because the idea of success looks a lot different. So my output, my productivity, what I used to expect of my output is just not even possible. And I recently came to the conclusion that like, I can't send out as many whatevers and facilitate as many interviews and do as many. I can't. You got, the baby at home and you're stressed from the pandemic and the election, and you just can't. And just redefining, well, then what does it mean to be successful in this environment? Because it can't look the same.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm trying to kind of grapple with. But I would say maybe my last success, maybe was my successes are like, honestly, when I get like wins for my client, which sounds very like,
no, that sounds good.
My client success is but whenever, with the friendship coaching, a woman has an aha moment and she's like, wow. Or you know what? Yes. Just yesterday, I was talking to somebody, we were talking about things. She was interviewing me for a podcast interview. And when we got done, she was like, wow, like, I think I'm going to email my friend and tell her like, I'm sorry, like they haven't spoken in months. And she was like, we're going into a new year. I think I'm going to tell her like I messed up and I am so sorry. And we haven't spoken in months. And that was just such a moment of like, okay, yes. Okay. And so I don't know, that felt really good to me. So I count that as a success because that was like something that changed someone, like the trajectory of her life, maybe. I don't know if they'll repair that relationship or not. So that was kind of a cool success. And I would say a failure was definitely this weekend. I tried to have like mom's day away and I was like, you know what, take the baby. Like I need time for me, just for like myself. And I got in the car and I was going to do like this getaway to a place like 2 hours away, but like an hour into the drive, I got a flat tire. And I would like to think like I handle those things with grace, like, oh, you know what? That's okay. Tomorrow's another day. But I didn't. I wasn't my best self and the trip really kind of didn't happen. And that's okay. And that's totally okay. I'm not upset by it at all.
Girl, that would have made me mad as hell. You trying to get away and you get a flat tire on the way to where you going? I understand why that was a failure. And listen, if you didn't handle it with grace, too bad to everybody involved who got injured in the process, honey, because that is frustrating.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that was definitely a failure. But God's working on me, so.
Okay. I'm trying to think. So I'm like, when's the last thing I failed at? You know what? I between working a corporate job and doing comedy at night is what I used to do and everything. Since I no longer work a full-time job, like a corporate job, I have decided, I'm going to try to cook. During the quarantine, I've tried to cook. A failure, my most recent failure was last night. We ordered some Jamaican food. I didn't cook. But they called me and said, the veggie patties that you guys ordered, we are out. So I can give you a refund or I can give you frozen ones and you can cook them for 35 to 40 minutes when you get home. And I said, throw me an extra one in there and I'll cook them when I get home. I'll cook them when you deliver them. So they delivered the frozen patties. And girl, I overcooked the patties. And when I overcook stuff, I be trying to play it off. I handed that patty to my husband. I said, the bread is a little dense, a little dry. He said, no, you overcooked this. You overcooked these. You burned these almost.
He keeps you humble.
He does. That was a failure. That was a huge failure. All right, y'all. When we come back, we're going to get into a few trending topics and we're going to give advice to someone who just moved to a new city and doesn't know how to make friends. So stay tuned. We're back. It's Jasmine and Danielle Bayard Jackson. Follow her on Instagram. That's the last time I'm going to tell y'all, okay? We are now moving into some trending topics. Now, Danielle, you're a beautiful wife, a mom, a business owner, a passion pursuer. What keeps you motivated and what gives you the strength to keep going in 2020 with the obstacles that we face, not only as women, as Black women, as, being moms, entrepreneurs, as a business owner during this time? Like, what really motivates you and keeps you getting up in the morning?
I I guess it's kind of like a two-parter because, I'm a person of faith. So I think having like a broader perspective of what's going on instead of just like having your face so close to the details. So that helps, I think, to keep me like having perspective. Of what it's all for, what we're doing it all for, and all that good stuff. So that's definitely one. And then two is, I think, remembering that there are small wins every day, which sounds kind of cheesy, but it's so tempting to get caught up in like, oh my God, like the world's on fire. People are, upping racist as, just like, it's just craziness. And so it's tempting to get caught up in that every day. And all of that is true. But every day that I wake up, there is some kind of new win. A client got a win, or there's some kind of new thing that emerged, or a new discovery, or something every single day. And so I think maybe maintaining that perspective is helpful when it comes to, pressing forward.
Yeah. I think the quarantine is it's such a weird time because a lot of people that I know, even people that have lost their jobs and people, have found something good about the quarantine. So while you feel like, man, God, what is going on, God? It also is like, okay, you kind of got my back though, because I'm learning a new skill, or I've taken a break, or I found something I'm really passionate about. So it's a sort of like a weird combination of like negative and positive energy during this time.
Definitely. Yeah.
I guess my next question is also in regards to the quarantine. We've been in quarantine off and on for the entire 2020. I'm in LA, but what city are you based in?
In Tampa, Florida.
Okay, in Tampa, Florida. But where are you from? Because you have an accent that's not
Oh
a
my
Florida.
God. Okay, so everybody keeps saying that. And I'm like, I don't hear it, but I'm from here. Like, I'm from Tampa. So that's just, I think that is so strange. And people were like, but where are you really from? Like, where are your people from? I'm like,
Where are your parents from?
My mom's from Buffalo and my dad's from Delaware. So, I mean, you know what I mean?
I don't know, girl. Your accent sounds like I don't even know where the accent would be, but somewhere like up north, or like kind of East Coast, but like up north. So maybe it's your mom being from Buffalo.
It could be. It could be. She says some things weird. So maybe that's what it is.
Well, listen, you're in Tampa. Have y'all even been in quarantine?
You know what is so funny? It's like sometimes I hear these stories of everybody else, and I'm like, right. Because my friends are definitely like, so when are you guys going to the beach? You guys want to go to the beach on Saturday? Or like what quarantine? We are going to Target. We're going to the beach. We're going to like happy hours at the club. Like, so I don't even know what people are talking about.
Oh my gosh. Are you serious?
I mean, it's where, I mean, what pandemic? But it's Florida. I know they get this funny joke about us, but we're still, living our best lives. I mean, sure, cases are, tripling by the day, but but yeah, we're still doing beach days for sure.
You know what? This is ruining my plan for trending topics. Do you know that Florida, everybody is gonna hate you after this? Nobody's ever gonna come to see you after this. We don't care about. People said the next time y'all have a hurricane, we do not give a damn. Do you know that people said that last night on Twitter?
That's awful. Oh my God, that's awful. I know, the worst. We're the worst.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I wanted to know like what adjustments you've made during quarantine. But I guess, I have a different question now. Like, how have you made adjustments to your life after being a mom, especially when it comes to friendships? Like, you mentioned early in the episode, which was such a good piece of data, is that you can only have 5 people. Your husband takes up 2. But what about your baby?
I know. Oh my gosh. I know. I thought about that. Like after the research was like, well, wait a second. Like what if, you've got parents you're really involved with, or you're a caretaker for, or your kid. I don't know how that factors in. But it has definitely changed things. Well, one is, having like the people you gravitate toward as friends. So like having mom friends is now important because I, want to be able to talk to somebody about, diaper cream and their eyes don't glaze over. I need somebody who's like, oh my God, yes, let's go on Amazon and shop around right now. So, that's one thing. But I think for me, I think maybe that's why I do all the things is because I feel like I think I'm trying to prove to myself that I can, because
Yeah.
before kids, I was very, very independent. Like, don't tell me anything. I'm doing what I want when I want. I'm not having a baby to slow me down. And if I have a kid, like, he just better like throw him on my knapsack on my back and we're gonna. So I think like I was very fearful of losing myself. And like when I go and look at my journal entries, before being pregnant, that was one of my fears. It's like, well, I'm still gonna be me. I'm still gonna do all the things. So maybe that is why I do so many things, is because I'm trying to prove to myself, like, yeah, well, he's not going to slow me down. He better keep up, So that's one thing, but it is teaching me the importance of rest.
Yeah.
Of you don't have to, and it's kind of beautiful sometimes to just like be doing nothing and just like looking at each other and like, it's a beautiful day,
Yeah.
So there's, that's a blessing, but yeah.
Well, my cousin Sadia, she was actually on the podcast. She's an actress here in LA. She said that after having a baby, and she read this, that after having a baby, you don't actually become yourself again until 3 years later. So how old is your son?
He is a little over 2. He's a little over 2. That's interesting because, which, kind of I do a digression, but not. But how everybody's like, you're dating, and then they're like, when are you going to get married? And then you have the kid, and then it's like, when are you going to have another? So, when people start to be like, when are you going to have, oh, he deserves a sibling. Where do you guys get it? And it's just like, how do I articulate to you, like, I just started being able to like, have girls' nights again and to think for myself and get some sleep, a full night's sleep. How do I communicate to you that like, I am not necessarily eager to go back to, you're breastfeeding and you're tired and it's only about the baby and you're like, but what about me? And, so yeah, that's an interesting thing to hear, because I definitely see that. Yes.
Yeah. Girl, you articulated by telling people, first of all, mind your business.
First I'll get out my uterus.
Exactly. Mind your business. And I don't want to. Or when I'm ready or when I feel like it, I will.
Right.
Child. Oh my gosh. Now, y'all, we are going to step into the Keep It Real corner like we always do at the end of the episode. This is a real question from TikTok. This person said, I just moved to a new city and I don't have any friends here. How can I meet new people? What's your advice?
So that's a common thing. We're moving and we're like, oh my God, I have no network. How do I start over? So a couple things. I'm going to start with the easy ones. The easy ones are to like get on those apps we mentioned earlier that are like, oh, here's how to meet people. Because if you're like, I don't even know how to meet new people, those things make it easy. Boom, boom, boom. People in your town, you can make it like specific to your city, whatever. So if you want to like use the little cheat sheets with the apps and stuff, go for it. But I always say that there's a possibility for connection everywhere. We just don't have our eyes primed to it. So for example, I once coached a young woman with the same issue, and I was like, it starts by the people you see every day. So I was like, okay, is there anything you do routinely? And she's like, oh, I go to the grocery store, I guess, like every other day. And I was like, okay, I challenge you to get in the same aisle the same time that you go every time when you check out. And don't you know, she's seeing, and we talked earlier about repeated exposure, like I'm seeing you all the time. Don't you know it's the same woman working the same shifts every time? And I challenged her to, when we're in line, get off the phone, make small talk. They were talking, and then it's like, oh, you have a little one? Oh, yeah, I have a little one too. Oh, yeah. Then it's like, oh, well, do you want to have a play date? Like, yeah, man. And now they're friends. Like, that was like months ago. But it starts with like, you see people every day, but we have that fantasy of like, I'm in the coffee line and this person or I go to a party and I hit it off with this girl and we're like Insta besties. And it's like, forget that. Like, you see people all the time, but as you're heading your phone, which makes you look unapproachable, like people aren't going to like bother you, are you at work, but you're being kind of short with people, not in a rude way, but you only see it as work. But it's like training your eyes to see the opportunities and the people you see constantly throughout the day. If you do want to use those little websites like meetup.com and things like that, I always encourage that because you know what's going on in your city. But I think a problem that a lot of us make is we go one time and then we're like, I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so I'm always like, I challenge you to go at least 3 times. Even if you're like, I'm over it, like I've made up my mind, like there are not people here for me, go 3 times. Because that's when you start to, you breed like that familiarity. So if I hear you talking about like your sick dog the first time I'm there, then the second time I get the opportunity to say like, I remember you saying something about, your dog, like, did that work out okay. And now it's like, oh, you're a good listener. You're interested. I'm interested. And so it's just like, but an opportunity, but we keep being like, first interaction, not feeling it. Yeah, she was okay. I need a new one. I need a fresh one. Okay, fresh interaction with you. Yeah, she was okay. And we're hopping around, and it's just like there's opportunity really everywhere. If you're, if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, but I don't go out and about. I'm strictly like at home on lockdown. Well, think about like how many, big Zoom calls you go to or networking calls, things like that. Even see that as an opportunity. You see everybody's tile and camera on Zoom. If there's somebody who answers or they ask an interesting question or they make a funny comment in the meeting or whatever, why not message them privately after and be like, oh my God, thank you for asking that question, because I was going to ask, but then I was like, I don't want to put myself out there. So just, I appreciate you. That's it. Or, oh my God, what you said today at the meeting was just like so funny. I'm still thinking about it. I just want to like tell you, it was hilarious. Thank you for the, humorous break in our meeting, whatever. But our problem is we're not extending interactions. And then we're like, why am I not making friendships? But you want everything to just like end where it is.
Yeah.
You earlier about like it not going anywhere, or you guys are talking and you're like, well, how are we going to, somebody has to keep extending it. You hang out, you have a good time. And following up doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, let's go to, do you want to go to coffee? Follow up just means extending the interaction. So that could be as simple as, when I'm hanging out with a new girl and she mentions a Netflix show that she's been binging, then maybe later that week I go and watch the first episode and I text her and I say, okay, so I watched that show you're talking about. You're right. It's hilarious. It's so good. That's it. But it keeps me top of mind. It keeps us going. It keeps momentum. And not to nerd out, but I'll end with this is, there was research from the University of Kansas that tried to quantify how many hours it takes to make a friend. And I have like some issues with the study, but like so far it's like the best we've got. And they said that it takes 50 hours to feel like, oh yeah, that's like my associate. Like, yeah, I know her. Okay. 90 to feel like that is my friend, and 200 hours to feel like, oh yeah, that's my best friend. And so I always joke that like, I wonder if we could see a timer on our foreheads of like the hours going up, if we'd be like, oh, okay, we got to go and do something next week because I'm trying to get this time up with her. Like, I wonder if we would be more intentional if we could see ourselves clocking hours, as opposed to like, oh yeah, we hung out and like we DM'd a couple times. So but you guys aren't friends. You're not close, but it's because you're not clocking hours, but simultaneously expect a friendship to come out of it, but you're not spending any like time. So that would be like my long answer to like making friends is 1, keep your eyes open to interactions you have every day. 2, every time you see somebody, even virtually, get them away from a group setting and into an individual setting, because that's when people tend to let their guard down more. So you're in a work meeting on Zoom, you email a coworker one-on-one after, hey, that thing you said was so funny. That's it. And just let it grow. And then maybe you have virtual coffee. And then finally, take as many opportunities to extend your interactions, because that is how friendships grow.
Danielle, when I tell you that this is so fascinating, I'm not going to lie. The tips also sound like the tips that you would get from a serial killer too. That's why we scared. But we got to get over that. And we have to put in more effort if we want friendships. And that is such a good lesson for today's episode, even for me, because I ain't gonna lie to you, I don't be wanting to put in the effort either, but I do be like, dang, I wish I had somebody to have a cocktail with. Wow, Danielle, how can we keep up with you? If somebody wants to reach out to you for advice, your services, your PR services, please tell us how we can keep up with you and where we can reach out to you for more info.
Yeah, so if it's the friendship stuff, our website is simply betterfemalefriendships.com. That's it, betterfemalefriendships.com. And that's when we have the community starting, where you can jump in. There's other women in there. You don't have to worry about it being weird to like reach out, because they all signed up to do the same thing. So they're gonna be like, hey girl. So that's a good space to kind of like get some friendship help. And I'm in the group, I'm in there chatting and stuff like that. So that launches soon, betterfemalefriendships.com. You can join the wait list. And then for me personally, that could be at hello@betterfemalefriendships.com. And then also on Instagram, people DM me their issues all the time. And I'm like, Like if I can't sum it up in a voice note, I'm like, here's my link. We can have like a formal session. There's an
Yes.
invoice on there. And I would
Yes.
love to because there's so much to unpack, but I love answering questions on Instagram too. And again, the handle's Danielle Bayard Jackson, so they can reach out there too.
You know what, girl? I might have to take you up on a consultation. And it's a shame because I already went to therapy for it. But I might talk to you about it again just because.
You know what? Okay, so here's the thing about therapy is designed to like reach backwards and be like, what happened in the past to help us understand where we are right now. And coaching's like, where are you right now? And where do you want to be? Let's talk about that. So I would not be equipped to be like, okay, so, your friendships are stemming from the pain from your mother. I don't even know. I'm just like, you want some tips on how to make a friend at the grocery store? Because I got you. So it would make sense. Yes. So coaching and therapy can totally be married together.
This is such a good episode though. Like my mind is blown.
You know what I think it is too? There's just like, where are you really supposed to like talk about this? Like where are you supposed to even talk about friendships? You don't. So
you
once
don't.
we're like, oh my God,
And when people think, when you're married, your husband is your best friend, but he don't want to hear this. He don't care.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, y'all, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on the platform you're listening on right now. If you love Color Couch Conversations, make sure to tell someone about the show. Make sure to tell someone about Danielle and her services as well. You can follow us on Instagram at Colored Couch Conversations, and you can watch the show on my YouTube. That's comedian Jasmine W on YouTube, spelled JAZMYN. Thanks to my dad. And thanks to Danielle for being on the show. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
It was.